It's been a long time since Michigan has really reached their best case scenario. And it's been a long time just since they've beaten their rival Ohio State. We're going to take a look at what the best case scenario for Michigan is this year and what's going to have to go their way for them to reach that best case scenario. So we're going to give you 4 points here. We'll start with the quarterbacks. They're going to need great quarterback play if they're going to reach their best case scenario. I think that's an obvious one, and really that's the case for almost every team. The good news for Michigan is they've got options. They've got McNamara, who maybe isn't going to be a superstar quarterback, but I think has shown that he's capable and could potentially be really good for them at quarterback. You've got McCarthy coming in, a big-time recruit that I think has probably the biggest upside. And then, of course, Alan Bowman coming in from Texas Tech. So if one of these guys can emerge and take that number one spot and then also just have a great year, and this offense takes that next step in the passing game, then yeah, that's going to be really, really big for them. If they're going to reach their best case scenario, I think you've got to have it. You're going to have not just average quarterback play, which is what they've had for the last several years. They're going to need great quarterback play to reach that next level. Also, they're going to need the offensive line to improve. They weren't great up front last year. Now, it was a weird year, of course, with COVID. They had some injuries. You know, it wasn't a normal season. They've got some guys coming back, but they need to be able to run the ball consistently. That is really, I think that's step one for Michigan. Offensively, if they can run the ball consistently, that's going to take some pressure off of the quarterbacks, allow them to maybe have great quarterback play, and it just all starts right there. So the offensive line for Michigan is going to be really key this year, really, really key. And I think it's a question mark. It's a big question mark. So they're going to need to get really good offensive line play, going to need to improve there if they're going to have the best case scenario type season. Also, they need the secondary to step up. This was a really big area of concern for Michigan last season. The pass defense just was not good. I think I saw a stat where they were 96th in pass defense last season. I mean, that's just not going to get it done. You look at the cornerback spot, they don't really have any stars. They don't have any guys that you can look to and say, oh yeah, I can trust that guy. Green's probably their best cornerback. They're going to depend on him, but he needs some help. They need some depth there at corner. I like where they are at safety with Daxton Hill. I think he is probably the best player on this team, and we're talking about an All-American type player. I really like what I've seen from him. Brad Hawkins is back, so they're okay at the safety spot. And depth is maybe an issue, but I think there's two starting safeties will be really solid for them. But it's going to be that cornerback spot, stopping the pass. That's going to be key for the Michigan defense. If they can do that, if they can improve in the pass defense, and these young guys can step up to the secondary, that's going to really, really change things for their defense and allow them to have, once again, one of the better defenses in the country. And then also, they just need to find some explosiveness on offense. And this is something that, we've noticed across college football. When you look at Alabama, when you look at Oklahoma, when you look at Ohio State, when you look at Florida last year, all of these teams just had explosiveness on offense. Yes, they could run the football, some of them, but they also were able to get big plays through the air. They were able to keep defenses off balance and just find that explosiveness. That is something that Michigan is going to have to do if they're going to get to that next level. And you look down the roster and you wonder, who is it going to be? Who is going to step up for them in the run game? You've got Haskins. He's going to be the guy at running back. I think it's clear with Charbonnet transferring out. I think Haskins will be their number one guy. You've got Donovan Edwards coming in, a guy that I think could really see a big role for them. But don't forget about Blake Corum, a guy with a ton of speed. Can he kind of give them some big plays in the run game? I know he's not going to go in there and get 30 carries a game, but if he can come in and be a nice change of pace and allow them to get some big plays on the ground, that's going to be big for this Michigan offense. And then you look at the wide receivers. Who's the guy that could maybe take the top off the defense, a guy that could help them get some big plays? You've got Ronnie Bell. He's consistent. He's going to be probably the go-to wide receiver for them. But who's going to help him out? Who is going to come in there and make big plays for them? Maybe it's a Roman Wilson. Maybe it's one of these young guys. That is another thing that I think they have lacked, and I think it's something that they're going to have. They're going to have to develop that vertical passing game, get some big plays on the ground, find that explosiveness offensively, and if they can do that, that is going to allow Michigan to creep back up into those top-tier teams in college football, and definitely in the top tier of the Big Ten. So what does this mean on the schedule? What does this mean, if they do all 4 of these things? What's the best case for Michigan? You look at the schedule. It's a pretty tough schedule. You've got Washington in the non-conference. You got Wisconsin on the road in your crossover matchup. But there are plenty of games that, I mean, there really aren't a lot of games on here where you're going to say, well, Michigan has no chance. I mean, you can't count them out. Maybe Ohio State. But other than that, I mean, they're going to have a great shot to win the majority of these games. So when we talk about best case scenario, we start with the games that we can just go ahead and pencil in. I mean, if they're reaching their best case scenario, they're going to beat Western Michigan. They're going to beat Northern Illinois. Really no doubt about that. And I think you can go a step further. Again, if Michigan plays to their full potential and they do the things we talked about, they're going to beat Rutgers. They're going to beat Nebraska. They're going to beat Northwestern, Michigan State, and Maryland. Michigan is a more talented team, I think, than all of these teams. And again, if all those things go their way, like we talked about, and they reach their best case scenario, they're going to win these 5 games. I don't think, they're just going to get it done if they're playing up to their expectations and what they're capable of playing. So that's 7 wins for you right there. And then you've got Washington, Wisconsin, Indiana, Penn State, and Ohio State. 5 games that I think are going to be their toughest 5 games this year. 5 games that, even if Michigan is playing their best, these are going to be hard games to win. Washington is a sneaky good team. This team, both sides of the ball, is going to be really strong this year. I know it's at home for Michigan, but still, that's going to be a tough matchup. Wisconsin, always tough. They play them on the road. That will also be a really tough matchup for Michigan. Indiana is a team, a program that is starting to turn the corner. We saw it last year. I think they're going to be really good again this year. Didn't really lose a whole lot, and as long as Michael Penix is back and healthy at quarterback, you can expect Indiana to be, I think, a top-tier team in the Big Ten. Penn State is another team that I think will bounce back this year, and you've got to go on the road to play Penn State. And then, of course, Ohio State. We all know that is going to be a very tough challenge there. So these 5 games are going to be, again, if everything goes really well for Michigan, they're going to win the other games. But these 5 games, what's going to happen in these games? They're probably all going to be close games that will come down to the wire. And I think if you're looking at this realistically for Michigan, out of these 5 games, if you can go 3-2, if you can have a winning record in these 5 games that are going to be the toughest 5 games that they'll play this season, I think that is something you'll take. I think that's probably about the best case scenario for Michigan. So I'm going to say that they go 3-2 in these 5 games. Overall, they go 10-2. Not enough to make the college football playoff. I don't think that's really, again, a realistic expectation for Michigan. But I do think it's enough to maybe push them into a New Year's Six Bowl. And I think that is the best case for Michigan. Go 10-2, make it into a New Year's Six Bowl, and really start to turn this program around and turn it into what it's capable of being. And I think that is what will be the best case scenario for Michigan in 2021.